Hello and welcome to a brand new show. It's the weekend show, and my name is Abhishek Sengupta, and I am in conversation with someone who's been an international diplomat, a writer, an author, of course, of great repute, a sitting MP of his native Thiruvananthapuram since 2009, but someone who's redefined the way average Indians, myself included, think, speak, and use words in English. It is none other than Dr. Shashi Tharoor. Thank you, Dr. Tharoor, for joining us today. This is hopefully the first of many conversations we will have every week ahead of a Friday edition of Weekend magazine of Khaleej Times. Of course, what we are going to talk about is, I've just described, words in English. That is going to be the theme of your column every week. This is the first draft of your column that I have with me. But before we get into the draft, let's quickly ask you to take us back to the start of your journey when it comes to words in English. And of course, when I say words in English, these are not words that average Indian people kind of know all the time.
Yeah, well, I mean, the truth is that I have had a love of words. It goes back to my father, who was an absolute word game addict. He was one of the first people to play Scrabble, I think, in India, kind of created a community around him. Boggle, acrostics and newspapers. He'd invent word games for my sisters and me, seeing how many words with 4 letters or more we could make up from the letters in a 9 or 10 letter word. And then another game we played on long car journeys was when one passenger had to imagine a 5-letter word. Let's say, you think of any word, steam, for example, and the others have to guess at it for 20 attempts. All you can do is you guess a 5-letter word, and the person who's imagined the word will say, yes, you've got 1 letter or 2 letters or 3 letters. How many letters in the word you're guessing is in the word in its head? And then you have to, by deduction, try and work out what the word is. It's an awful lot of fun. But all of this kind of stuff used to go on. There's a great love of words and language and the inventive ways my father put it into practice obviously rubbed off on me. I was the eldest child. But it was never words just for their own sake, Abhishek. It was about the idea that my father had, that words are what shape ideas and reflect thought. And the more words you know, the more precisely, the more effectively you're able to convey your ideas, your thoughts, the point of view. And that's why words have always mattered to me. And that's where we are today.
Absolutely. Talking about words, I think the only way to take this forward now, I thought the only way to sort of take this forward is pick out words from this draft that I have. Of course, this is out in this weekend's edition on the 2nd of July. You can grab this weekend's edition and read that. But before you get to that, I think we can pick out a few words and maybe put the question back to the author himself. So I've highlighted, underlined few words. But before I get to that, I think I'm happy to declare that none of these words were actually a first time for me. So that's
good.
It's quite refreshing to know that I got through to the end of your article without being surprised at all. So I don't know if you've kept it easy for starters, I'm not sure. But yeah, some of the words are intriguing, and I'm going to ask you about those words if they are your favorites. So the first one I thought was an etymological egghead.
But etymology is about word origins. It's about, yes, the origin and meaning of words. And an egghead is merely a slang expression for an intellectual. Somebody who's completely focused on a subject is often called an egghead. It could be a scientist, could be a professor of some sort. But an egghead is an old slang for someone who really just focuses on a particular area of expertise. I suppose today we're more likely to call them a geek or a nerd or whatever, but there's a connotation of intellectual merit with an egghead, which one should also bear in mind.
Are you one? Are you the
Oh,
best
I don't know.
example?
I grew up at a
Or
time
were
when
you
whatever
one,
you
maybe?
accomplished, you were supposed to wear very lightly. The idea was never to struggle hard for the examinations and then celebrate having done well. You were supposed to make it look effortless. That was the prevailing culture when I was growing up. And so, if at all I did study hard and do well, which I did, I must admit, I had the marks to prove it. I at the same time tried to joke and act in plays and into debates and do lots of other things. So I was still a regular guy. Didn't want to be typecast as an egghead.
Right. Okay, understood. On to the next word, beachcomber. Now, beachcomber, of course, there used to be a pub here in Dubai, not very long ago. So beachcomber is something definitely I've heard. Do you want to illustrate that, the meaning of beachcomber?
Well, actually, a beachcomber is literally somebody who walks along a beach trying to comb it for valuable or interesting items. You're on the street, beg your pardon, on the beach. You see a seashell here, you pick it up, oh, it's cracked, you drop it, go along, you see a perfect conch shell, you pick that up. A beachcomber does that kind of stuff. Beachcombers often also find things that other earlier visitors have dropped and left behind, which could be quite valuable. And a beachcomber actually is combing the beach, just as you would use a comb to, sift through something, starting with your hair. A beachcomber combs through the beach to see what he or she can find, and that's essentially what it is. So when you're looking at someone who just collects stuff from the beach, it could be junk, it could be attractive, it could be valuable, but the idea is that's what a beachcomber does.
Interesting. Okay, on to the next one. I've heard this many times, and I know who you've referred to in this, and I'm not going to ask you to name here, media charlatan.
I won't name the media charlatan.
But you can,
have a few.
You can just talk about charlatan. Let's leave media out of that. It's very interesting history.
Yes. A charlatan is somebody who falsely claims to be somebody special or have a particular knowledge or a particular skill or a particular talent. A con artist is a charlatan because a con artist claims to have certain talents or whatever. You could have a quack doctor is a charlatan because a quack doctor comes to you and say, look, I have a cure for something that ails you, and says, give me money and I'll get you this miracle drug from so-and-so that's going to make you well. That kind of thing is also an example of a charlatan. So a charlatan is a faker, a quack, a shyster, if you like. But basically, it's somebody falsely pretending to a position, a status, a knowledge that he really doesn't have. So a kind of, in this case, a kind of media con artist, somebody who doesn't have the substance or the authority or the knowledge that he claims to be broadcasting.
Right. I did say leave media out. And if we just treated charlatan, and even before we got started on this interview, we didn't kind of agree to the fact that this will not be a political, this will be an apolitical interview. So if I may ask you to name one charlatan, what would it be? This
I
is
wouldn't name the name, but I mean, you must have all heard of the guy who sold the Brooklyn Bridge several times over to, unsuspecting tourists. I mean,
You've said that. I've got your answer. Those who want to know have got their answers without even naming. Right. Okay. On to your most famous words. I think no one word would have made Dr. Shashi Tharoor as famous as farrago.
Oh, well, I do remember the particular episode you're referring to. We'll leave names out of it. In any case, there was no name in my tweet. I was incensed by a really libelous TV program about me. And so I tweeted that it was a farrago of distortions, misrepresentations, and outright lies broadcast by an unprincipled showman masquerading as a journalist. Now, for some reason, this not just struck a chord, but triggered an almighty wave of enthusiastic curiosity.
It's become cult. You never know. It might be even in the textbooks of literature, first year.
Well, the Oxford English Dictionary tweeted in some puzzlement that
Yes.
they'd had an unprecedented spike on their search engines with over 1 million people looking up the word farrago within the span of a few hours in one day. They'd never had anything like that, you know, in their computer systems or whatever. Routinely, perhaps, you know, 1 or 2 people might look up farrago a day. Suddenly 1 million did, they were freaked.
Yeah.
But anyway, the farrago is simply a confused jumble, a mixture. You throw in various things together, it becomes farrago. But it's, again, you know, if you have to look at context as well, it's not a very complimentary word. That is that, you know, if you're mixing up, let's say, healthy foods in a bowl like muesli or whatever, you wouldn't call it a farrago. But if you're throwing a lot of junk in, you tend to call that a farrago.
Right. Okay. That brings us to pretty much the end of the show. One word which, I'll be honest, I hadn't heard before, and that possibly is because of a generation gap. And I'm not suggesting I'm many years or decades younger to you, but this word called Boggle. So you were talking about playing Scrabble and Boggle. So I've never heard that game, honestly.
Oh, okay. Well, it's interesting because, you know, Scrabble is a game that I think by and large most people are familiar with. You have tiles with individual letters, and, you know, each letter has some points attached, and you try and make words after drawing letters at random. Boggle is in a fixed case. It's actually like dice, and therefore there are a number of different letters on each side of the dice, right? So in this kind of box, you'll have rows. I think there are 4 rows of 4 each of dice, with each dice obviously having 6 sides to it. And then you shake the thing up. And when you put it down, the letters you have, you've got to form a word out of the letters that are visible. That's how it goes. So it can be an awful lot of fun. I must admit, I haven't played it for about 30 years now, so it may well be a generational issue.
Right. And
I thought you would ask me about impecunious. That was the other word that I expected.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Okay.
Some of you to pull my leg on, but anyway.
Yeah. No, I always feel impecunious every time I speak to you, because I thought my English was all right, but when I speak to you, I feel that way. So
No. The impecunious always relates only to money. And you have far more money than me because you're earning in dirhams.
Oh.
Let me tell you, Abhishek, impecunious is only a word that relates to the possession or not having of money. So, like, you know the expression, a pecuniary interest is when you have a financial interest in something. It comes from the same Latin root. So when you see PECUN, you can be pretty sure it relates to money. And impecunious means somebody without any money, somebody who's penniless. So it's a synonym for poor in the financial sense. And that's what this is all about.
And when you
the joke was somebody saying that I used to think I was poor. Now I've met Shashi Tharoor and I realize that impecunious is a way of pulling my leg, that I would use a big word to say the same thing.
Right.
But impecunious literally means not having any money.
Understood. And when you don't have money, it leads you to a life of penury, right?
There you are.
The same word, right? Right. So that was my education for today, and I would love to have such English classes once a week. Dr. Tharoor, thank you for joining us today, and hopefully we will keep this running for as long as Dr. Tharoor gives us time out of his incredibly busy schedule. We wish you speedy recovery. You've just told us that you're recovering from COVID-19, and we wish you...
From a rather long COVID, 19, 20, 21, it seems. But anyway,
right.
You're right.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tharoor, for joining us today. And we hope to see, hear, and read more of you in the coming weeks on Weekend, Khaleej Times' Weekend magazine.
Looking forward to being on your pages again. All the best.
Thank you. Thank you.